You thought the clans were bad, and the Chaos March is worse. And don't look at me like I'm crazy for saying that. I've been there. I know. With the clans, you know who your enemies are. In the Chaos March, you never know. The enemy could be the one your employer says it is. Or it could be the people you're supposed to be protecting. Or even the guy whose contract you just signed. You never know.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
G'day guys, and welcome back to BattleTech Down Under. For 3 years, the inner sphere breathed a collective sigh of relief. The truce of Tukai had stopped the clan juggernaut dead in its tracks before 3052, buying humanity a 15-year reprieve. For a fleeting moment, great houses actually stood together and held the line. But if you've been around this universe long enough, you know that peace is a bloody fragile illusion. It's now 3057. The clan threat hasn't gone anywhere. But the basic greedy human nature of the inner sphere has officially caught up with it. And the old hatreds, well, they're back with a vengeance. Right at the absolute heart of the galaxy, in a strip of space called the Sarna March, the foundation of the inner sphere's greatest empire is about to crack wide open. Now that corridor, it wasn't just a bit of extra territory Hans Davian carved away in the Fourth Succession War. It was the physical bridge holding the two halves of the Federated Commonwealth together. Lose that bridge, and the biggest superstate the galaxy has ever seen falls apart at the seams. Today, we're breaking down the brutal lore behind MechWarrior 5's Chaos Reign DLC. We're looking at how a single royal assassination, a desperate political cover-up, and a dirty war of revenge tore the map to shreds, creating the most lawless, cutthroat mercenary sandbox in history, the Chaos March. But to understand how this whole place goes to hell, we have to look at the crumbling pillars of the FedCom alliance. It was a union designed to rule the stars, but by the mid-3050s, both of its architects are gone. Hans Davian died of a heart attack in 3052. Then Melissa Steiner, the one person whose personal popularity kept the Sarna March worlds from launching an open rebellion, is brutally assassinated. With her gone, the political glue holding the Lyran Commonwealth and the Federated Suns together completely dissolves. And right on cue, enter Katrina Steiner Davian, better known to history as Katrina. Absolute political viper, this one. She takes one look at the power vacuum, notices her brother Victor is completely distracted by the clan front, and starts playing a bloody dangerous game. She stokes the fires of Lyran nationalism, telling her people they've been taken for a ride by the Davian half of the Empire. Then, on the 18th of September 3057, she officially cuts the cord. Here's what she actually said to the galaxy. And this is absolutely verbatim from the historical record.
My fellow citizens, I speak to you now about a situation that is most grave, because it involves the security of our realm. As you know, the Free Worlds League, in conjunction with the Capellan Federation, has launched an assault against the Sarna March of the Federated Commonwealth. Thomas Marik says he launched this attack because my brother, Victor Davion, killed his son Joshua and installed a double in his place. I cannot afford to wait passively for Victor to act.
And just like that, the Lyran Alliance spawn. But Katrina's little power play creates a catastrophic mess overnight. At the exact moment she pulls the pin on secession, there are roughly 30 FedCom regiments and RCTs physically trapped inside what is suddenly a foreign nation. Davian troops standing on Lyran soil, with no orders, no clear chain of command, and a new Archon who looks at them like they're the enemy. 30 regiments, stranded out in the scrub. The The seeds of a massive civil war are planted the second she stops speaking. The biggest faction in human history is actively eating itself from the inside out. And the neighbours? Well, they smell blood in the water. Which brings us to the absolute clusterfuck that Katrina was responding to. The Joshua Marik crisis. Now, Thomas Marik, Captain General of the Free Worlds League, had made a straight shooting deal with Handstavian back in 3051. In exchange for sending vital war material to the anti-clan effort, Hans agreed to give Joshua Marik, who was Thomas's terminally ill son, access to the best cancer doctors in the galaxy at the New Avalon Institute of Sciences. Victor Davian inherited that deal in 52, and along with it, a total nightmare. The treatments failed. Joshua was dying. And this is where Victor makes the absolute worst tactical decision of his entire career. See, if Joshua dies, Sun Tzu Liao, Chancellor of the Capellan Confederation, who's engaged to Isis Marik, stands to become the heir to the Free Worlds League throne. Now think about that for a second. One bloke controlling both the Capellan and the Marik military machines. He'd be in a position to launch a war of conquest the Inner Sphere simply couldn't handle while fighting the clans. Victor flat out couldn't let that happen. So, in a well-intentioned but completely brain-dead move, when Joshua dies on May 20th, 3057, Victor's people swap him out with a body double. Pray to the saints nobody notices. They might have gotten away with it too, if a safe intelligence agent hadn't blown the lid right off the operation in July. Thomas Marik, a man who had kept his word for 6 years, genuinely believed his boy was getting better, finds out his son is dead, has been dead for months. Some stranger is sitting in his place. His fury was absolute. But look, history gets a bit more complicated here than the mainstream Hollowitz let on. Thomas was ropeable. Absolutely. And yeah, he launched an invasion. But, according to the strategic record, Marik wasn't even the main aggressor here. That title belongs to Sun Tzu Liao. Marik had strict, limited goals. Take back the worlds the Fedcom stole from the League during the Fourth Succession War, and then park the tanks. Sun Tzu, he had a completely different agenda. He wanted to destabilize the entire Sarna March so thoroughly that no great house could ever rule it again. He wanted permanent chaos as a strategic outcome. Together, they launched Operation Guerrero in late 3057. The Marik forces take back their worlds with textbook military precision. But the Capellans, they push much deeper, fighting savage, bloody brawls on worlds like Marcus, Van Diem 4, and New Canton. The Fedcom military, stretched thin and completely fractured by Katrina's secession, has no coherent response. Marik, he gets his worlds back and goes home. But Sun Tzu, he leaves behind exactly what he wanted, a massive, bleeding void. And then, while the map is still burning from Guerrero, something happens that most history books gloss over entirely. On October 24th, 3057, less than 6 weeks after Katrina split the Empire, unidentified forces suddenly drop out of the sky and seize the Comstar HPG facilities on the worlds of Sirius and Procyon. Comstar fires off an urgent general bulletin stating,
"Fate of the Comstar personnel operating these facilities remains unknown. Since this time, no facility outside the system has received any transmission from those stations."
Those unidentified forces, they were the word of Blake, religious radical splinter faction of Comstar that Thomas Marik had given sanctuary to years ago. While everyone was distracted watching the fireworks of Operation Guerrero, the Blakists quietly hijacking the communications infrastructure of the entire region. And mind you, this is right on the doorstep of terror. HPGs means no orders from New Avalon, no coordination. A planetary governor couldn't even send out a distress signal if they wanted to. These worlds weren't just abandoned militarily, they were completely cut off from the rest of humanity. And that is the exact moment the map completely breaks. Dozens of worlds across the old Sarna March realise, all at the same time, that the great houses have left them to rot. So what happens? Total bloody chaos. Local governments declare independence. Corporate militias grab every resource they can wrap their hands around. Pirate kings set up brutal, little micro-empires overnight. A few worlds tried to band together to survive the storm, forming tiny alliances like the Sarna Supremacy, the Stick Commonality, or the Scythe Triumvirate. Others just completely collapse into anarchy. The Sarna March, the bridge that once held the greatest empire together, is officially renamed by the galaxy as the Chaos March. If you're a civilian, it's a living hell. If you're a warlord, it's a playground. But if you're a mercenary outfit, mate, it's bloody Christmas, New Year's, and your birthday all rolled into one. There is zero legal oversight. There's an infinite supply of contracts from desperate locals with deep pockets. And the only rule left is the one old Carl Eckhart laid out to you. You never truly know who the enemy is until the lasers start melting your armor. Sometimes, not even then. There's no contract law out here. No MRBC to report a breach to. If your C-bills clear the bank, we power up the reactor, and we step into the cockpit. But it's not just the political borders shifting in the mid-3050s. The technology of war is going through a massive evolution. 5 years since Tukayed, Innosphere tech savants have been salvaging, reverse engineering, and losing sleep over captured clan tech. In Chaos Reign, we're finally seeing the terrifying fruits of that desperate labour. We're talking about C-Tech retrofits, classic, dependable Innosphere chassis like the Atlas, the Marauder, and the Warhammer, stripped right down to the skeleton and rebuilt to mount salvaged clan weapons and heat sinks. They still look like the old warhorses, you know, but I reckon they hit like something straight out of the Kerensky cluster. We also see the frontline deployment of the Bushwhacker, a medium mech built specifically to counter those agile clan Omni-Mechs that have been chewing up our lines since 3050. And at the heavy end, the Fedcom's real answer to Omni-Mech technology, the Sundar, a 90-ton assault Omni-Mech that gives the Innosphere its first true modular weapons platform at the top of the tonnage bracket. Now, let's pay close attention to the framing of the enemy in this Chaos March DLC, because it's a nasty surprise. In the Chaos March, you aren't just fighting second-line garrison troops. These occupation zones hold frontline clan assets that were never rotated back home. If you think a second-line Jenna 2C acting as sector security is a bad day at the office, and it bloody well is, just wait till a 100-ton clan Kodiak drops out of the tree line. Kodiak is a frontline clan assault monster, and it's exactly the kind of nightmare waiting for you in a contested sector when nobody senior is left alive to stop it from being deployed. Right in the teeth of this absolute meat grinder is where the DLC kicks off, in a region where everyone is trying to slit each other's throats. Information is ammunition. We're heading straight into the fire, looking for the highest bidder and ready to let chaos reign. The Great Houses broke the galaxy. The map is bleeding. The Word of Blake has their creepy hands on the HPG network, and the contracts are wide open. So make sure you hammer that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because our multi-part Chaos Reign playthrough series drops after the DLC goes live. We're going to be building a custom mercenary company from scratch, hunting down that sweet, sweet clan C-Tech salvage, and seeing if a bunch of blokes from down under can survive a war with no front line and no clear end. So drop a comment below and let me know, which of these new mechs are you hunting down first? Are you going to risk it all to salvage a Kodiak, or are you dropping straight to the cockpit of a Bushwhacker? And until next time, guys, I've been Dave, and I'll catch you next time.